Yeah. What was the last session? We have, okay, not this is this other batch. So we have worked on HTML5, CSS3, and in the CSS3 we are looking, or we are working on responsive web design, sorry, layouts. So yesterday we have completed the grid layout, correct? We have discussed each and every property in detail. We have discussed each and every property with practical. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now let's take one example of the grid layout. So new for day 25, and here index 01.html and app 01.css.
You can share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. You see my screen, right? So we have discussed all these things in detail. That's what I was saying. Each and every property. Now we will have example. Index HTML, HTML5, and here we can say grid layout demo. And so yesterday also we have seen that demo, but app1.css and like this. Grid you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Just a minute. Yeah. So what I wanted to create is image gallery. What I wanted to create is what? Image gallery. So can you tell me how do you create image gallery exactly? How do you create image gallery?
It's a combination of number of rows and columns.
Or I will share one image. First, I will give you something to see. How do you create this thing? Yeah, tell me.
Right. So the things which we learn, right, the grid layouts that we can utilize here.
Correct. But how? I need,
Example columns we can use for like four, and then rows example one, two, three, four, five rows and like four columns.
okay, 4 columns. So let's try to understand the grid. First, let's do some important stuff. HTML5, sorry, HTML body width 100, PW height 100 VH. Okay, height 100 VH. Then let's have section where grid would be getting placed. Section display grid. Correct? This would be our grid. Width would be 100%. Height would be 100%. Correct? Width would be what? 100%. Height would be 100%. This is the section. Now, inside this, let's have a figure. What is figure now? What is figure tag? Hello? What is a figure tag? When you say figure, so if, yeah, go ahead.
Sure, because like we know images and other things, but in figure.
Yeah. So if you remember, HTML5 semantic tags. Do you remember HTML5 what? Semantic tags. You can write this thing. You can write this thing into normal div also. So you can maintain this thing as a div, and into this div you can write img tag. But this div has no meaning. Yes or no? What I want to do, I want to have that container which specifically contain the figures. The figures can be anything, any image. And that's why here I have used HTML5 specific tag, that is what? Figure. Correct? HTML5 specific tag, that is nothing but what? Figure. You got it or not? Meaning of figure is a semantic tag. Now for knowing this thing, you should,
We can utilize a div as well.
yeah, div as well. So
Yeah, that was for HTML3. This is for HTML5.
5, correct. So instead of section, you can use div as well. Correct? Instead of using that section, why we are using section? Just to make your page more readable, more understandable for some browsers or to the humans as well. Correct? And that is how this, that is how we have used the figure tag. And inside that figure, we are saying that a browser, specifically images would be getting stored in a figure tag. Okay, fine. So this is the display grid. Now, how many grid items would be there? How many grid columns would be there? So display grid, and here we can say 8 columns we would be needing. grid template columns, repeat. So instead of writing auto this thing, so you are saying that repeat 8 columns. Here you can give width in fractional unit, right? Here you can give 25% also. Here you can give 25% also. So how do you divide 100% width into equal 8, what you can say, equal 8 columns, right? So there would be little calculation required, or you can say 1 FR. It will decide internally. 1 FR, repeat 1 FR. Okay, grid template rows, repeat.
So, for columns, like we mentioned that 8 or like 1 FR, how that FR will work? Will that be based on like screen size or something?
Yes. So what will happen? Did I used it before or not?
No, no, first time.
Okay, I need to go to official documentation then. Grid layout, just a minute. Grid layout, Mozilla doc. So let's go here. Grid layout. Grid cell, grid lines. Fit content. Well, I have read somewhere here. Now see, just I told you over here. So if you have 8 columns, how, and if you say some percent, how do you divide your 100% into 8 columns? Can you tell me? How do you divide?
Right. We'll have to like calculate manually, so it's better to
Yes,
put it like one fraction, so it will calculate
it will
automatically.
automatically calculate what is the one fraction. Automatically it will create the space. You getting my point? What I mean to say? So 100%, presently you are using 8, but tomorrow that might be 5 also. 5 would be easy calculation. There would be 3 also. So at that time, a unit where grid decides internally, where this is the fractional unit, it represents one fraction of the available space in the grid container. When you set column or row to the 1 FR, it means that available space will be divided into the equal fractions, and each column or row will take one of that fraction, 1 fraction, 2 fraction, 3 fraction, whatever. So first column can take 3 fractions. So you don't need to calculate the percentage over there. That's the convention. You got it, what I mean to say? Hello?
Yes.
And deliberately here I can say 5 VW, viewport width, 5, sorry, VH, VH. Correct? And grid gap, we need to set the gap is 16 pixels. So first see how this grid looks. So first see how this grid looks. Inspect. Yeah, see here. So grid is in place. Can you see 8 columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The grid gap is also visible. Grid height is also visible. Now if you change this to the VW, inspect it. Yeah, see here, height little bit, instead of VH I have made VW, and see this much is 1 unit. Can you see one fraction means how automatically it has calculated how much to add? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
So one question is, like for columns we gave fraction, that is like okay. For rows it was, but we needed a height for row, so we gave 5 view height, like viewport height. So
You
that was okay. Why we changed to like
see,
viewport? Like
you
just wanted
can
to
you can
understand.
you can give percent also, no problem, right? But 25% would be this much. There is no problem. You can set anything, right? This unit can be, actually in the beginning you cannot decide this. So once your grid will take shape, you need to rearrange the things, correct? At that time you will get to know that okay, percent unit is not appropriate here. Let's go to the VH. It's a trial and error thing, correct? Hello? So here at this time you cannot tell anything about how much space you would be needing. Even this is also not true. Now because of the judgment I can write things straight away over here, but to you it won't be that easy in the beginning. In the beginning I also have struggled with the trial and error. You need to do trial and error here, otherwise that's not possible. Getting my point? So there is nothing in your project right now, just one grid is there. So you cannot decide this value would be in the VH, VW, pixel or what. But in responsive designs, so you should get a question why I'm using VW, VH or 25%, why I'm not using pixel based system. Answer is here. Why not pixel based system? Answer is in the tomorrow's topic. That is nothing but what your responsive layout. That's why I'm using here percent wage. So this is also, nothing is fixed. On the mobile, 1 fraction would be different. On TV screen this would be different, right? That's why just don't worry here what units to use. That would be getting changed as per your need. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. So how many items are there in an image? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 grid items would be there. So here figure 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that clear why I have taken 6? Because image says that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you will get a question. There are 6 figures and 8 columns. How you are going to do that? So answer your query is correct. If you get the query, you are on the right track of understanding. If you didn't get this query, okay, 6 images are there total and 8 columns are there. Or how many rows are there? I'm sorry. How many rows are there? 8 rows are there. 8 column, 8 rows are there. And you have 6 images. My question to you is that how these things will fit together? how these things will work, because calculations are not fitting. Means 6 image 8 by 8 grid. There are 6 image and 8 by 8 grid. How things will work? And if you see here, you will see only 3 columns and 3 rows. What's happening? I'm expecting answer. If
Can
you
we adjust it or like
if you have studied the grid, if you have read about, or if you have revised yesterday's sessions or grid sessions, you will answer that. Answer to this question is that no matter grid how much your grid is, 8 by 8, 20 by 20 or whatever, no matter what your grid is, 8 by 8, 20 by 20, whatever, grid items, we can decide one grid item starts from where and one grid items end on where. Yes or no? So here we can say, so this first grid item will start here, end here. This will start here, end here, but it will start here and it will end, it will occupy 6 grid items, right? It will occupy 6 grid items. So let's start placing the grid items. Let's start placing the grid items. Here we can say grid underscore item underscore 1. So I can write this in, you can say pseudo classes, in the form of pseudo classes also. Deliberately I am not writing that. So here we can say grid column start, grid column start. So this is the first item. First item will occupy, it will start on first, right? Grid column end, and it will end on third. Similarly, so this item, how much rows it will occupy? Grid row start, grid row start 1, grid row end 3, and let's give a background color cadet blue, not this. Where is the image? Refresh it. Okay, class didn't apply. Grid item 1, class grid, not dot, grid item 1. Can you see? This much. If you see here, some built-in things have been added. Grid column end. What's the problem with grid column end? It shouldn't have any problem actually. If you see, it is getting some, figure is getting some margin. Can you see that? What's the yellow color? This color, some padding, some margin is there. It is getting some margin somewhere. Now you should be understanding how exactly you would be doing all these things. Whenever, so this would be edge to edge grid. From somewhere, the figure class by default would be having some margin. So we have set that 0, 0, 0. But your one element will look like this. No problem, we'll work on that. Now grid item 2. Same grid item 2. Let's create grid item 2. It will start from third column, end on fifth column. It will start from first row, end on third row. And let's give some different color. Blue violet. Refresh it. Oh, class didn't apply. Grid item 2. Grid item 2. Refresh it. Can you see here? Now about third item. So it is ending here. If you see, it is ending on the 5th to 8th. Grid item 3. 5th to 8th, 9th, sorry. Grid row start. Grid row start 1. If you look at the image, 1 to 6th. So I'm not deciding anything from the image. Technically consider that you have drawn some vertical lines on this image. 8 columns you have drawn, and 8 something like this you have done. So if you want to do that, we can upload from link option is there or not? Okay, we don't have that option. Otherwise I could have shown you. We could have get this image and exactly 8 by 8 grid we could have created over this, and then you could have seen that which column will start from where and which will end on where. Getting my point? So here we can say third 1 to 6 double, and let's give chocolate. Refresh it. Sorry, here we can say class grid item 3. Class what? Grid item 3. Okay, so that's why just do now. See, I found that this is incorrect, 25%, right? Here we can say 5VH or VW. Can you see that? Hello? Even 16px is also not that good. We can say 0.3 em, 0.1 em, grid gap, or give it in a pixel. See now, trial and error, 8 pixel, grid gap 8 pixel, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's taking a shape 1, 2, 3. Now this one, fourth item, dot grid item 4, dot grid item 4. So from which column it will start? Just a rough idea. First, from here it will start. It will start from the first. Grid column end 5th. Grid row start 3rd. Grid row end 6th. And then let's give some background color cornflower blue. Go here. I'm sorry, again I have forgotten to add. That's why you just open it in two segments. If you have two screens, that would be more better. Four. See, this is your, this guy, correct? Now this one and this one, they are equal. Fifth and sixth dot grid item 5 dot grid item 5. So from where it will start? If this is ending on, where it is ending? It is ending on the fifth. Fifth to fifth grid columns. Yeah, column would be first. Same thing. Grid column start first, grid column end fifth. Grid column start first, grid column end fifth. Now here it will start from sixth, end on the ninth. It will grid row start, grid row start sixth, grid row end ninth. And background color crimson. Let's give class fifth. Refresh it here. Now what about sixth? Class
we can repeat it just like starting.
Sixth here dot grid item sixth, grid column start again 5 to 9. It would be like this, right? 5 to 9. So it will start from fifth column, end on ninth column. Are you understanding, guys? Grid,
Yes.
grid column start 5, grid column end 9. Then grid row start similar to this 6 to 9th, grid row start 6th, grid row end 9th. And background color, let's give tomato. Color will overlap. Just change this color. Steel blue. Refresh it. Yeah. So your grid is ready. Okay. Now you may apply few properties like justify content center. Justify content center. Align content center. Exactly at the center. Or you can say align contents space between. And here also space between. It will not impact on the width part because it is edge to edge. All the things are occupied. So grid gap is little too much. Why it is not grid gap? Grid, it is a deprecated actually. When you say strike through, when you see the strike through, can you see? Okay, grid gap. When you see the strike through, which means that the property grid gap or grid row gap, grid column gap are no longer used. Are what? No longer used. And they would not be used in your code base. So instead of that, you need to find out what is the alternative for them. Okay. Can you see property is obsolete? Shorthand that specifies gutters between the columns and the rows in one declaration is a gap property. Is what? Gap property. And that's why we opt for the gap. Gap 1px. Something is happening, but
Right, you mentioned like in the figure, the margin is getting
ah,
applied.
okay. Let's write figure margin 0, margin 0. Grid gap 1px. Gap is there now. Here we can say 8 pixels. Now why this white coming between the rows? Inspect it. Okay, at this time this white comes over here. Okay, now here gaps are accurate, right? Can you see the white colors, and they are working correctly, but here
Clicked it, it's coming again.
so we need to find it out. That's what our duty. And here we are one, two, three, four, 5. Can you see 1FR of 90 pixel automatically it has taken? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why this thing is coming? Who else is getting? Third. Grid column start third. 1, 1, 2, 3. Item 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Display block property prevents grid column end having an effect. The display block property prevents grid column end from having an effect. setting display block to something, try setting display block to something else. So what they are saying, inside this figures, well, that is not the concern, but this space is concern to me, this gap. If I remove this 8px, it is edge to edge. Okay, can you see here? Still you get the gap. If you remove the 8px, oh, got it. This gap is coming from the space between. You getting my point? From where this gap is coming? The space between. Here if you say center, that gap, and here also don't make a space between, center. Can you see now? Exactly 8 pixels you will find gap everywhere. Can you see that? What was the concern?
Alright.
So few we have set, can you see there is a white space above the grid, white space below the grid. There is a white space above the grid and white space below the grid. And what is happening when you do space between? Grid is occupying that space and adding little space between the items. That was the problem. Correct? And this is your grid looks like with the 8px gap. Any questions on this? What I will do, let me push this much code first. Grid layout. I have few questions. I will push the code. Grid layout, gallery, image gallery. So go through the code for 2-3 minutes, read the documentation, and I have few questions I will ask. Are you reading?
Code only right.
Okay. Done?
Yeah, the code, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to need some time, you can take time, no problem.
So you're looking for to understand the code, right?
Yes, I want you to understand the code. This align item center is also not required. You will see full screen. Okay, some extra space is there. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8. And can you see row height is not matching? So here you can give auto. See now, edge to edge. Height, I don't know how much height. So I was trying to give, can you see? As I told you, okay, just a minute. First, let me push it. CSS3, grid layout, height, row height. I just made row height to auto. So your grid would be full screen grid.
Right. Instead of fixed left, we are like
Yes.
it will get everything.
Yeah. So my some tasks are to you. Actual images you need to add over here. So here, whatever images we have, instead of that, you need to add actual images. And you need to set some properties related to the images so that your image will fit exactly in this box. If you fit image directly over here, it might not fit in the box. So your first task is that you need to make sure image should fix exactly into this box. This box, this box, this box, this box, this box, whatever. That you need to take care. So here we have created uneven grid. People feel this is a complex one, but this is not actually complex one. If you have a good understanding of the grid, you can implement this anyhow. Okay, next thing. Here we have everywhere used grid column start, grid column end, grid row start, grid row end. What is the alternative to this thing? This is my first question to you.
We can short hand,
Which shorthand?
like grid row one, height,
Correct.
the backslash, span,
3.
span.
Correct. So you can use grid row and grid column. You can use grid row and grid column. Okay. For the image, which property you will use? That is my question.
Same as you have to check like the previous code, not on the top.
There is a property. If you can check the document, you will get it. Now you need to add images. First task, images should be fit exactly into that box. Second task, you need to optimize the code. You need to optimize the code by removing this grid column start, grid column end. You need to write proper shorthand properties over there. Okay.
Okay.
Now see how many homeworks are pending with you. First, Google landing page. Now you know grid layout also, you know flex layout also. Google landing page is pending from your end. Social media landing pages like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, you need to build and upload it to the Git. That is pending. So whatever homeworks related to the flex, I have asked you to add buttons at every corner and at the center. That code is also pending. And now these grid related things are pending. Fine. So let's call it for a day. We'll meet tomorrow.
Sure. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks all. Code have been uploaded. Recording will upload till tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah. I'm disconnecting.